What's happening, cat daddies and foxy mamas? It's the Blaxploitation fanatic with another episode of Blaxploitation Appreciation Podcast, where we celebrate Blaxploitation culture from movies to music to books and everything in between. So let's go ahead and get into today's episode. Now, our movie for today is a movie called Bamboo Gods and Iron Man. And before we jump into this, I'm willing to bet that unless you are like deep into the Blaxploitation genre, that you probably have never heard of this particular movie. So it's one of those kind of obscure movies during the kind of range of Blaxploitation movies. So before we jump into this, I actually want to share with a lot of you, because sometimes people say, well, hey man, this is cool, you're exposing us to this, but how can I get up on some of these Blaxploitation movies? So I'm going to put you up on two resources that I actually use to get into or find a lot of the Blaxploitation movies, because even though I know a lot of these because I came up in the 70s, some of them, or a lot of them I should say, I know some of them, but a lot of them I was just too young, man. I was born in 71, so by the time I really started getting into knowing about movies, which would have been late 70s, a lot of these had already passed. And like I said, I think my mom took me to some of them when I was really little, because I do remember some, but for the most part, I wasn't hip or privy to a lot of them until much later. So I want to put you up on two resources. And the first one is by my man, Josiah Howard, called this book is the Blaxploitation, the Essential Reference Guide. And this book, man, this is like almost like my Bible of Blaxploitation. I've been in that to he just gives a thorough detail of a lot of Blaxploitation movies that came out during the 70s. And, he gives you detail around plots, who was in it, who directed it, that type of deal. He doesn't do as much rating or talking or his personal opinions on the movie, but like I say, it gives you a lot of detail. So if you are ever like, hey man, I want to see something, I don't want to wait for the next podcast episode, I want to go watch my own movies, pick that one up. I'll probably put a link in the resources. I'm not getting anything off of it. It's just this is a cool dude. I actually did an interview with him for my website, Blaxploitation Paperbacks, and just a cool dude. So that's a great resource to pick up. The second one is by my man David Walker. Now, David did a magazine back in actually it would have been in the 90s, because I think I remember still being in college. And this got me back into the Blaxploitation genre. He had a magazine called BadAzz Mofo, which you could see right there. And he did several issues. Each issue, he was do review Blaxploitation movies. Now, he did thorough reviews, and he held nothing back. If he didn't like it, man, he trashed it, and some of his reviews are hilarious. But what he did is, over the course of the years, he did a couple books, and this is the one I have right now. This is one where he pulled some of his reviews together into a Blaxploitation book. But recently, maybe a couple years ago, he did this. It's called the BadAzz Mofo Blaxploitation Toilet Reader and Compendium. Basically, he pulled all his stuff together. So it's almost, I'm pretty much willing to bet it's probably going to be almost exhaustive as the Josiah Howard book. Now, I had this one on order, so hopefully it'll come to me in the next couple of days, because again, and Josiah as well as David, in both of theirs, they do reprints of the Blaxploitation movie posters. So like I said, one of the things I love, even more so than the movies, is just the aesthetics of the Blaxploitation culture. So the book covers from the paperbacks, the posters from the movies. So that's a part of those books as well. So just wanted to put you up on those as two very wonderful resources if you're really interested in going deeper into this Blaxploitation culture thing. All right. So now, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the movie. Like I said, it's pretty obscure. You are probably not really familiar with it, Blaxploitation or Bamboo Gods and Iron Man. This one came out in 1974. It was an American International Pictures, and this one was produced by Cirio Santiago. Now, again, unless you're deep into Blaxploitation, you may not know the name Cirio Santiago, but you know the movies. This dude is filmed a lot of movies in the Philippines. He's Filipino guy, and just several of the movies that he filmed. Savage, starring same guy from Bamboo Gods and Iron Man, James Iglehart. I'll talk about in a minute. TNT Jackson, Ebony, Ivory, and Jade, The Mothers, and then he directed a movie with Leon, Isaac Kenny, and Jane Kennedy called Fighting Mad or Death Force, depending on where you can find that particular movie. But Serial put the Philippines on the map as far as a lot of filming of the movie. So, and this one, Bamboo Gods and Iron Man, it's filmed in the Philippines. So even though it's supposed to be in Hong Kong, it was filmed in the Philippines, which is where Serial Santiago did a lot of his movies. So I would definitely tell you to check out some of his movies, and we'll be covering some of them in upcoming episodes as well. But Bamboo Gods and Iron Man, basically, this is one of those. Okay, when people talk about people who complain about the Blaxploitation genre, talk about bad acting or bad shots, bad movies, and things like that. This is one of those. This falls into that. I mean, not a bad movie. It's a fun movie, like a lot of the Blaxploitation movies are. But in terms of if you're trying to compare it like as a cinematic piece of art, it's got bad acting. You know, some of the shots are poor, but again, just a fun read. And so, who you have in this is um, this guy right here, James Iglehart, who I think he played football and then went into acting. But surprisingly, he does a great job as a leading man in this, and he has very much leading man qualities, and it is on display here in the movie. And so he plays this guy named Cal Jefferson. It's funny because in the trailer, and I think even on the movie poster, they like reference, they call him Black Cal Jefferson. She's black because he guy's black, but it's just like, hey, they fear the legend of Black Cal Jefferson. Nevertheless, um, he does a really good job in the film. His wife is played by Shirley Washington. Shout out to Shirley Washington, hometown girl. She's from Detroit, so I'm gonna give it up to her. Shirley did she didn't have major roles in any other Blaxploitation movie. She was in Darktown Strutters, which was rebranded as Get Down and Boogie, depending on where you see it. She was in TNT Jackson as well, and then she was also in Fast Black or Disco 9000. But again, in those movies, I didn't even know she was in them until I kind of did research on her to see what else she did in the Blaxploitation lexicon. So her parts were very small. I think Darktown Strutters might be the biggest one of those because it said in Disco 9000, which I've seen, but I only remember like two or three people from that said she was a receptionist. So I'm gonna have to go back and watch that to look for her in there. Okay, so James Iglehart, Shirley Washington play a married couple. So he's Cal Jefferson, and I think her name is Marlene Jefferson, and they're on their honeymoon over in Hong Kong. Now, the other person who's the leading character in this is a Filipino actor slash, I guess this guy, his name is Chiquito. He was a Filipino actor and comedian. I guess he was real big over there. So he's the kind of third and main person in this movie. And then there's a guy, the villain, I don't have a picture of him, but Ken Metcalf played the villain Leonardo King. And Ken Metcalf was in a lot of Blaxploitation movies. White guy, I think he played the villain in quite a few, and he was in several Serial Santiago movies. He was in Savage, TNT Jackson, Ebony, Ivory, and Jade, the Mothers, and he was actually in pretty much all the movies I listed that Serial Santiago did. Okay, but this movie definitely a low budget movie. It starts off with some dudes robbing a grave and stealing, like taking a pouch, and you're like, what does this have to do with anything? But what ultimately happens is while Cal and his wife are honeymooning in Asia, his wife buys this Buddha, and supposedly whatever was stolen from that grave was hidden in this Buddha statue or in this box where this Buddha is. And so throughout the movie, people are trying to get this from Cal and his wife, and they're like, they don't know why people are after them and why he's trying to get this food, and they have no idea. But while they are kind of honeymooning and vacationing, they cutscene, Chiquito, he's like this deaf mute, but he's fights these guys protecting this girl from, like I said, this just came out of nowhere. This thing came out of nowhere, protecting this girl from getting raped. He like rescues her fighting these guys, but they beat him up and they throw him in the river, ocean, whatever it is. And what happens is while Cal and his wife are vacationing their own little boat out on the water, they see Chiquito drowning or struggling in the water. So Cal jumps in and rescues him. When Chiquito comes to, they pull him out of the water, he comes to. Apparently, in the culture, if a man saves your life, you owe that man your life. So he starts following him around, and Chiquito, his name in the movie is Chow Lee. Okay. So when Cal finds this out, I don't know if he just runs Chow Lee together. I can't say Chow Lee, but he starts calling him Charlie. So throughout the movie, Cal's referring to Chow Lee as Charlie. And so Chow Lee basically follows Cal and Marlene around everywhere they go. I mean, they try to get away from him and they can't. He's just following them around. But ultimately, what happens is towards the end, like I said, he takes a liking to Chow Lee. They as people were starting trying to get this Buddha, they're jumping, attacking Cal, and Chow Lee rescues them several times. But in the end, they find out that all this Buddha contained was a pouch of gunpowder. But this guy, Leonardo King, he like has his henchmen track Cal down to find this thing. He kills a couple of people over it. So that's sort of the plot and the overview of the movie. But as I talk about this movie, it, it, like I said, the acting and everything's terrible. You know a movie is bad when, and I'm not trying to be stereotypical or racist here, but when an Asian movie, when the Asians in the movie do terrible kung fu, that's a bad movie. I mean, when you see the fighting scenes and the kung fu even by the Asians, it's just like, this is laughable. But again, fun watch. What I do appreciate and enjoy, like, again, I love the aesthetics of the 70s and the Blaxploitation culture, the shirt that Cal wore. So I mean, just look at these shirts, man. Let me get out of the way real quick. If you look at like each of these shirts, look at that one there. That is like crazy. So all these shirts that get it. It's just, they're indicative of the times, but I'll be honest with you, I would probably rock one or two of those there today. I would definitely I would rock this one here. And then probably, yeah, that one, what's that? That one there too. I'd rock that one there also. So that's probably one of the best things about the movie. So I don't really have a lot of scenes. Usually what I'll do is I'll say, what's my favorite line? There's not really any lines that stood out. And I'll like pull a couple of scenes and say, hey, this was my favorite scene, but not really. Again, just bad acting, kind of cheesy movie. Fun, because I love Blaxploitation. But here's an example of, some of the action per se. This is what I mean when I say the fight scenes were terrible. So check this out. So you could see that's what the movie presented. But nevertheless, I wouldn't tell you to not watch it, because if you're trying to get up on Blaxploitation, or again, if you're reminiscent of the times like me, then go watch it. Just a fun watch, man. So that's what we got for our movie for this week. Bamboo Gods and Iron Man. When you get a chance, check it out. All right. So our book for the week is another Holloway House classic, and it is called The Case of the Deadly Triangle by Ronald Ayers. And this, man, again, if we're talking about the aesthetics of the Blaxploitation genre, look at this cover. This cover is freaking beautiful, man. And so this is one of the things that stood out. And this is the first edition cover. I have the copy that I have is a second edition cover. So I would love to track down that first edition cover. I think it's probably going to be pretty expensive as well as hard to find. But the movie the book in and of itself, and I'm saying movie because, one of the things I judge a Blaxploitation paperback by. Y'all dig the merch? This is one of the books and one of the series we'll be covering. But anyway, I usually judge a Blaxploitation paperback by whether it would make a good movie, and this is definitely one. This came out in 1975, and what it's about is a student named, or a detective, Leonard Robinson, hired by a widow to find her husband's killer. And then as he goes deeper into this case, trying to find out what's going on, things start to unravel, exposing like this crazy love triangle involving a father and son, where the father had a mistress who the son was also messing with, had a baby, wasn't sure if the baby was the father's or the son's. And then through that, it's, the father owned a business, the son took over, the mafia was trying to get into it. And so through all of that, it's just like some gangster action and stuff going on. And like I said, I think this would have made a really good movie. So I have high acclaim for this one because it just, again, the cover, the story is fun. And one of the things it makes me wish is, I don't know, the author, Ronald Ayers, that's him, probably looks cool, don't he? I don't know if this is, I think this is the only book he wrote. I would have loved to have seen him write more, even like a Detective Leonard Robinson series, because this particular book is a good read. So if you can find this one, definitely check it out. All right. And that brings us lastly to our music for the week. And again, since we're talking obscure, like Bamboo Gods and Iron Man, this is kind of an obscure movie. Probably not a lot of people know about it. I know Case of the Deadly Triangle is an obscure book. Not a lot of people have heard or even know about this, but if you could track this one down. But then from our music standpoint, we kind of got a obscure album, and that is a group called the Soul Children. And this makes me think of the Queen Latifah song from her first album, Mama Gave Birth to the Soul Children. I know she wants to talk about them, but it's just kind of when I think about this. Now, when I look at this album cover and I see this shack and stuff, this makes me think of Arrested Development's first album. And, you think the song Tennessee and how they had that back home country woods feel. That's what I see when I see this album. And the album itself is sort of country funk. What I'm not gonna play any samples because they've been kind of jamming me up on the podcast when I play music samples with the copyrights, or if I use some of my Blaxploitation lingo. They've been shining me on, man, because I've been playing the music. But so I'll just tell you about this one. Like I said, it's country funk. I think from a single standpoint, and you see the name of those songs there, Hearsay was the hit or the lead single or the main single that came off of this. But the other cut on here, which was really good, is there's a cut called All Day Preaching. That's really funky. So again, I wish I could play some samples, but not going to take that chance. But even just when you look at the album in and of itself, this is, to me, a Blaxploitation representation as well. I just love the aesthetics of this. So I'm gonna wrap this thing up for this week. Cat Daddies and Foxy Mamas, that's what we got. So again, the movie, Bamboo Gods and Iron Man, check it out if you get the chance. The book, Ronald Ayers, The Case of the Deadly Triangle, and then the music, Genesis by the Soul Children. All right. So that's what I'm going to leave you with, Foxy Mamas and Cat Daddies. Let's get out of here, and I'll catch you on the flip side. See you at the next one. Peace.